So one of my most popular, if not my most popular video from last year was my Ultimate Nipper Showdown. You guys really seem to enjoy that video. That video is still getting views to this day. If you guys want to check that out, be sure to check it out here in the corner. But we're in the year 2020 now, and of course there have been, lots of new nippers that have come out this year, and you guys even recommended some that you guys wanted me to check out. So of course I'm doing a 2020 version of the Ultimate Nipper Showdown video, and yeah, we're gonna make this video 10 times better than last year's video. So let's jump right into it. So what is going on, boys and girls? Welcome back if you're a returning subscriber. And of course, if you're new here, why don't you consider subscribing if you get some value out of this video, and at the least, maybe like the video for a brother, you know what I mean? If you're getting some value out the video. So nippers are probably the most important tool inside of any Gunpla artist's tool belt. It's the first tool that they're gonna pick up, and probably the tool that they're gonna use the most over time. So having a good pair of nippers, or at least having a good pair of nippers that fit you, is an important thing. So in this video, guys, of course, I'm going to show you guys which nippers are the absolute best nippers, in my opinion, from the range of nippers that I have. But one thing that I want to do differently on this video that I didn't do in last year's video is I want to be able to provide value for all of you out there. You see, not everybody wants to spend a large amount of money on nippers, or even can for that fact. So in order to kind of balance that out, I'm also gonna tell you guys which nippers I like best at a particular price point. That way, if you're one of those people that either can't or don't want to spend a lot of money on nippers, you'll have some other valuable options. So real quick, before we jump into the video, I gotta give a shout out to my sponsors for this video. Got a couple extra sponsors on this video. So of course, Mecca Warehouse, who is my normal everyday sponsor for the channel, who sent me over a pair of PN God Hand nippers, and as well as Display and Vulcan, both of whom decided to send nippers specifically for this video. So without their contribution, I wouldn't be able to have as many nippers to review for you all. So definitely shout out to both of those companies for putting their nippers into this little battle royale of ours. So appreciate those guys, and let's get started. So we've got quite a few nippers here to take a look at. So if this video is kind of long, I apologize, but I'll make sure that I have chapters and stamps down in the description below, so you can jump through to the section that you want to see, or if you just want to jump to the end and see the final results, you can see that as well. But I would definitely appreciate it if you guys stick around to watch the full video. So with that being said, let's jump right into the video. Let's jump into the first pair of nippers. All right, so let's get started with the first couple of nippers on our list. And mind you, these are nippers, but not nippers. And you'll see what I mean. So the very first one is nail clippers. So I had to go ahead and include nail clippers in here because I want to keep in mind that a lot of new builders start this way. They start with nail clippers. So it's relevant for us to go ahead and compare the nail clipper so that you can see what you may or may not be missing out on if you're a new builder trying to move to something more meant for Gunpla. So while nail clippers may do the job for some parts, honestly, nail clippers are the very bottom of the barrel when it comes to nippers for Gunpla. You definitely want to move away from nail clippers as quickly as possible. However, one good thing about nail clippers is that they're free. Pretty much everybody's got nail clippers in their house, hopefully somewhere, unless you're walking around with like the big old pimp pinky nails. You should have some nail clippers in the house somewhere. So that's the benefit of that. They're free. Now, nail clippers, surprisingly, you can actually get a fairly decent cut out of nail clippers. The only problem that you're gonna have with these is because of the rounded type of face that they have on the blade, it's gonna be kind of hard to get that into the gates sometimes. Thus, it's gonna make it kind of hard to cut some parts off of the runners. Also, because of the rounded tip of the nail cutters, it's actually gonna make it really kind of impossible to get that really close second cut on your part after you've actually got it cut away from the runner. So, you know, while these do work for cutting your parts from the runner, I would definitely advise against these. Any of the nippers that we have on this list, even the cheapest ones, are gonna be a better fit for this than the nail clippers. But if you're in the middle of a hotel on vacation or something, that's all you got, then hell, it'll work. So the next nippers on the list, if you were to just take a quick glance at them, you might actually mistake them for being nippers designed for Gunpla or for scale modeling, but these are actually wire cutters. So what I have here are some Husky wire cutters, and I decided to include these in this list because this is something else that a lot of you probably have floating around in your homes. So it's likely that as a new builder that you may revert to some of these, or you may even, you know, without knowing better, you may think that these are equivalent to some of the higher end nippers or nippers in general that we're gonna talk about. So how viable are these wire cutters for cutting parts off of the runner? Well, they're actually not horrible. They are, at minimum, at least better than the nail clippers. Now, the couple of downsides that you have to using these wire cutters versus nippers is, very first thing off the bat is that the blades are really kind of thick. These are gonna have much thicker blades than what your average Gunpla nipper is gonna be, other than maybe your entry levels. But yeah, you're gonna have very, very thick blades on both sides of your wire cutter because they're meant to cut through, you know, through wire. So they're a little bit sturdier. Well, actually they're much sturdier, much more substantial blade for sure. The other downside to using these is there's no spring on wire cutters. You'll notice that on your regular Gunpla nippers that there's a spring there. And what that does is that gives you that bounce back for when you're cutting. So every time you take a cut and you release your grip, the nipper jumps back for you. The wire cutter is not gonna do that. There's no spring on them. They're not gonna jump back. The last thing to note with the wire cutters, just like with the nail clippers that we just did, is the fact that these thick blades on the wire cutter are gonna make it also really hard for you to get a close second cut on your part. So all in all, these are viable, but definitely not ideal to use. But just like with the nail clippers, if it's all you got, you know, you can definitely use it. Now with the wire cutters, hopefully you already have some of these in your home, or you probably do. So they're just like with the nail clippers, you get that free pro right there. That's, you know, definitely a pro is the fact that they're probably already free. You've already have them in your house. But if you don't already have a pair of these, by no means would I try to buy these for Gunpla whatsoever. Your average pair of these probably costs 10 to 15 bucks. And for that price, we can definitely get a much better pair of nippers designed for scale modeling and for Gunpla. So that brings us to our first actual nipper in this video, or nippers actually designed to do the job. So the very first nippers on this list, or actual nippers designed to do this job, is gonna have to be the Mr. Tools nippers. These are kind of your just basic nippers that are gonna be marketed alongside like any kind of entry nipper that you're gonna see out there on the market. Usually they're pretty distinctive, big handles, black frame, big blades, and these are gonna run you probably between 10 and 15 bucks. So now, just because these nippers and the like are basic entry grade nippers doesn't mean that they can't get the job done. So what you're gonna notice with these nippers is that the blade is gonna be a little bit thicker. It's not gonna be as thick as those wire cutters, definitely not that thick, but they are gonna be a little bit thicker, which is not necessarily a bad thing. These blades are also gonna be more robust because they are thicker. So the upside to that is you're way less likely to damage these blades or break these blades trying to cut through something that you probably shouldn't. I personally use these anytime that I want to cut through some really hard plastic, but that's pretty much what I relegate them to. An upside to these, especially compared to the nail clippers and the wire cutters, is the fact that these blades, although they are kind of large or medium size, are still going to be small enough to get into most places and most gaps to cut your part from the runner. Unlike with the nail clippers and the wire cutters, where they're just kind of either too big or weirdly shaped, that's going to make it difficult for them to get in there. Now, these nippers are going to give you smooth action, although not the smoothest action, but you're going to get fairly smooth action out of these nippers when you're clamping down on those parts. And now these nippers are going to give you fairly smooth action when you're clamping down on those parts, and the majority of these come with a very nice rubbery grip, so they're going to be really stable in your hands. But the one downside to these is that they do create a lot of stress on the nub, as you can see with the white being shown here. So because of that, you're probably not going to want to cut too close to your part so that you can actually have some nub left to work that down with your files. Because if you cut too close with these, you're probably going to leave a nasty stress mark in your part. So the next nipper up on this list, and actually new for this year, is the USA Gundam 2.0 nipper. Now, I did a review of the 1.0 nipper in last year's video, so let's quickly kind of recap on that nipper. So your USA Gundam 1.0 nippers, as well as a couple other nippers out there, like the Gundam Planet variants, are what I would consider to be kind of middle of the road, single-sided nippers. Definitely some nippers that we're trying to kind of move toward that player base, and that God Hand had kind of captured with their SPN 120s, but with a lower amount of refinement. However, they were still really good nippers. Now, the 1.0s had a light squeeze, very smooth action, and actually had really good low stress on the nubs. Now, one thing to compare with the 1.0s and the new 2.0s that came out this year is that the blade on the 1.0s was a little bit thicker. The 1.0 sold for approximately 35 bucks, I think, with free shipping as well. So definitely a pretty decent deal if you're looking to get into these single-sided nippers. But no need to really stress on those, because those have now been replaced by the 2.0s. So for the 2.0s, I was actually really excited to check out these 2.0s. As you guys know, I'm not sponsored by USA Gundam. However, I have a lot of people that I consider friends that are sponsored builders from USA Gundam. And I was seeing where a lot of them were getting these nippers and were saying, awesome things about these nippers. And, I definitely had to get my hands on it for this video. And, not that I don't trust them, but, I got to do a little, independent research and see if maybe they, feeding a little bullshit in there or whatever. So, yeah, I was super excited to try these out. Now, as I said, in comparison with those USA Gundam 1.0s, the 2.0s do have a sharper and smaller blade on them. Just like the 1.0s, they had very, very low stress on the nub, which is always a great thing. And because of that smaller, sharper blade, I was able to get much closer on my second pass with the USA Gundam 2.0s than I could with the USA Gundam 1.0s. Now, the USA Gundams had some of the smoothest action on these blades out of all the blades that I tested. They were extremely smooth, and I think that's, attributed to, one, the blade being thinner and sharper, but also, those tolerances inside of there where you have the metal on metal. The one thing I was not a fan of the USA Gundam 2.0s, and really of any nippers that I ever use, and this is just maybe a pet peeve of mine, but there was some oil leakage off the backside of the nippers. Maybe I'm just spoiled from using God Hand, but I've never had an instance where oil leaks out the back of the nipper. Now, I don't know if that's a tolerance thing. Maybe it's just not as tight, or maybe it's just over lubed. It's just an annoying pet peeve of mine. But other than that, these nippers performed amazingly, way better than I thought they would. So definitely some great nippers right there. Just like the 1.0 nippers, you can pick these up from USA Gundam for 35 bucks with free shipping. So definitely something to keep in mind on the USA Gundam 2.0s. So next up on this list, these are nippers that you guys actually told me to go get. I had no idea that this nipper company even existed. But yeah, these nippers come from a company called Vulcan. So I actually have 2 pair of nippers from Vulcan. What happened was I actually ordered a pair of nippers off of you all's recommendation, and I ordered the wrong pair. So Vulcan was actually nice enough to, once they realized I ordered the wrong pair of nippers for Gundam, they were awesome enough to send me another pair of nippers, something more appropriate for Gunpla and for scale modeling. So definitely shout out to Vulcan for sending those over. But you know, we're still gonna put them to the test, and we're still gonna roast them if they deserve to be roasted. Now I'm gonna start off with the pair of nippers that I incorrectly ordered. Mind you, these are not the nippers that Vulcan would recommend that you get for Gunpla or scale modeling. But if it's something that maybe you mistakenly purchased it the way that I did, maybe it can work out for you or work out for you in some other hobby. So jumping into the first pair of Vulcan nippers that I have, the first thing that you'll notice about these nippers is that the blades are closer to that of your wire cutters and your basic nippers. So much larger blades, and because of those large blades, just like on the wire cutters, it's kind of hard to fit these nippers into the gaps on the runner sometime in order to cut your pieces out. So sometimes that can be a pain in the ass with these. Also, just like with those wire cutters, those big blades also seem to cause a lot of nub stress. And because of that, also not gonna be a good pair of nippers to use on that second close-up cut. So there's pretty much a trend here. Bigger blades, more stress. Bigger blades, more stress. Bigger blades, more stress. Other than that, I would say that they perform pretty much on par with the wire cutters, maybe slightly better, just due to the fact that they're newer, sharper blades than those wire cutters. Now, one thing that I didn't like about these blades, and you'll see that this is a pet peeve for me all the way through, just like with those 2.0 USA Gundams, these leak oil. I hate that. I can't stand using nippers and looking at the back of it and seeing oil, black oil coming out the back of them. I don't know if this is just a tolerance thing or what, but this just really annoys me. Now, as far as price on these nippers are gonna run you about $15. And personally, I think that's a fair price. I can definitely see value in these at 15 bucks. Definitely any more than that, definitely not going to be a good pair of nippers. But at the $15 price point, I think that's a fair price. Now, the next pair of nippers also come from Vulcan, but these are the prime nippers. These are the ones that Vulcan actually sent out my way. And these are the ones that they actually recommend for Gunpla and for scale modeling. So if we look at these nippers, these are gonna look much closer to our, our standard single-sided bladed nippers that we're used to seeing everywhere. So with these, I found these to be very smooth action, very smooth cut, and very low damage to the nubs. The one thing that I absolutely loved about these nippers was the fact that there was no leaking of oil. So yes, I absolutely love the fact that these nippers did not leak on me, not once the entire time that I was using them. I used them on multiple kits, as well as if you guys go and check out my Pomodoro video, I actually am using these nippers in that video while I'm building that kit. Now, these blades aren't absolutely perfect. I would say that these blades are just slightly larger than that of some of the other single-sided nippers. And what that really translates to is that smooth cut through parts. Like I said, the thinner the blade, the smoother the cut. However, these definitely feel a little bit thicker, and it definitely translates through when you're cutting. However, there's a slight trade-off there. They're gonna be a little bit more durable, but I would love to see these blades shaved down just a little bit more. I think that these blades right here are a very, very close contender to being the closest thing to God hands, with just a slight blade adjustment. just a slight blade adjustment, and these could definitely put God Hand in trouble. Now for price point on these, expect to pay at least $35.99. At least that's the price I was able to find on Vulcan's website. But however, that did seem to possibly be a sale, so maybe these might actually run as high up as $45. Now personally, I definitely think that these are a better value at the $35 mark than they are at the $45 mark, because at $45 we're definitely getting into God Hand territory, and I do feel like these are better suited competition wise for the USA Gundam nippers than they are the God Hand nippers. However, Vulcan, if you guys just slightly do something with that blade, this will definitely be a $50, $45 blade, or a $45 nipper all day long. The next blade up on the list is another returning blade from last year, but with a new entry, and that is of course the Despay blades. So last year I picked up the Despay STA 2.0s, and those nippers were great. They worked really well, and you could definitely tell with the 2.0 Despays that they were definitely marketed squarely at the God Hand base. The 2.0s are definitely a shot at the bow at God Hand. Like they're definitely trying to steal those customers. And the one thing I like about Despay is coming hard, guys. They are trying to produce as many usable products out into the market as possible for us. So I think that's a good thing, as long as we're not getting like gimmicky crap. And I mean, I love it. As long as they continue to put out good quality products that we can actually use, and that they don't rake us over the coals for, it's a good thing. But back to these nippers. So yeah, back to the 2.0s. I had those on last year, so a quick recap on those. Surprisingly, with the 2.0s, they actually had what I would call moderate stress level on the nubs. It's not as bad as some of the bigger blades, but it definitely had a little bit more stress than I was thinking it would for what it is. Now, the one thing that I don't like about the Despays that has kind of become apparent to me is I think that the angle of their blade to the cutting board surface is slightly off. With both my 2.0s and the new 3.0s that I've gotten, there seems to be kind of an extra step, if you will, when you actually squeeze the nippers. So you go to do your squeeze, you come to that, which should be the stop, and then there's always like an extra like shelf that it like kind of slips off. And I think that's due to the blade being angled slightly different than that of, say, your God Hands or USA Gundams or any of these other single bladed nippers. That shelf is really, really annoying. But in addition to that, in addition to just being annoying, I think that's what's causing this little bit of extra stress on the nubs compared to some of these other nippers. Now, that doesn't mean that these blades aren't extremely sharp and don't cut like butter, because they do. They're very, very smooth. The action on the Despay is very smooth. Also with these blades, you're gonna be able to get a very close second pass, so there's no worries there. Now, the Despay 2.0s at the time of this recording, I think are still available at USA Gundam, and they ran for about $45. However, the 3.0s have just started to hit American soil, and I believe at the time of this recording, only New Type has them, and over there, they're actually cheaper at $35. Now, I don't know if that's just a sale or something, if that price will go back up, but I'm sure USA Gundam will probably get the 3.0s in shortly, and that price will probably come down there as well. And for whatever other retailers will be carrying the Despays. But I'm not sure if that price at New Type is just a sale or if that's the standard price. As you can kind of see, it's starting to get crowded at the $35 mark. So now the Despay 3.0s, in comparison with the older 2.0s, they actually really seem to have the same size blade. I don't know if maybe just the angle changed on these slightly, But even though they seem to have the same size blade, the 3.0s definitely seem to have a smoother action, and they definitely seem to cut much sharper than that of the 2.0s. However, in my tests, I found that the 3.0s have that same fatal flaw as the 2.0s. That whole, hit the stop and then, continue on to that second shelf. I don't really know how else to explain it, but if you guys are having issues with that, definitely let me know down in the comments below if you've had that problem with your 2.0 displays or your 3.0 displays. But for me, it's just really annoying, and it definitely gives off an audible click. You can hear where the blade slips down and hits like the second stop or whatnot. Now, I think because of the little refinements that they did on the 3.0, the 3.0 definitely gets very close, very close up on parts. So you can definitely use these for your first and your second cut, no problem. In addition to that, they also have very low damage to the nubs, so no worries about messing up your parts cutting too close with these. Now, with both the 2.0 and the 3.0 displays, I feel like the Spey at this point is the closest one in the game right now to having that blade as close to that of a God Hand blade. A lot of these nippers on this list have very sharp blades, but when it comes to the absolute perfection that is the God Hand blade, the Dispays are the ones that are the closest. And as I said, these Dispay 3.0s are coming in around $35, which is surprising but nice. Again, you have Dispay there pushing the envelope, pushing the button, so definitely making that $35 bracket way more competitive, which, to be able to compete like that is a good thing. It's a good thing for us as consumers. All right, so here we go. These are the blades that you've been waiting on. Thanks for waiting patiently. Of course, it's the God Hand blades. So first off, shout out to Mecha Warehouse, my sponsor, for shipping out the PN120 blades for me, so I could take a look at those for you guys as well. So we're gonna take a look at the two most common God Hand nippers, the PN120s, which are the red handles, and the SPN120s, which are the blue handles. Now, because I'm doing this video based off of value as well, and I mean value as you as an individual are gonna get out of spending your money on these products, it's worth noting how God Hand kind of intends for you to use the PN120s and the SPN120s together. So the two of these blades together are part of the two-cut system, where you would cut your first cut with one and your second cut with the other. The first cut, of course, being with the PN120s, which is a slightly thicker blade, and the second cut close on top of your part with the SPN120s, which is your blue blade. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and get this part right out of the way right now. So the SPN120s are like 45 bucks, and the PN120s are like 45 bucks. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, for me personally, there's no way in hell that I would buy both the PN120s and the SPN120s just to do a first cut and a second cut. It's just not happening. They're both like 40 bucks. We're talking about almost, 80, 90 bucks in nippers. It's just not happening. Not gonna happen. I'd much rather buy two pair of SPN120s and be careful with my cuts. So now let's get into the PN120s by themselves, and then we'll look at the SPN120s. So like I said, with the PN120s, these are kind of positioned, if you're using these in combination with the SPN120s, these are positioned to be your first cut from the runner. So you would be using these to cut the actual part from the runner, and then you would go behind it with the other blades. So as a standalone blade, how do they compare? Well, to be honest, they have that God Hand feel to them for sure. They're super smooth blades. They feel great in the hands. The action is like butter. However, the biggest thing that I've noticed about these PN120s is they have a thicker blade, kind of closer to that of the Vulcans. The Vulcans and these PN120s are probably fairly close to each other in blade thickness. But yeah, you can definitely feel that blade is a little bit more robust on these PN120s. So with these, you can definitely cut your part from the runner, and they're definitely good enough blades that you can go ahead and do your second pass on parts with these as well. So because of that thicker blade, this blade is going to give you what I would consider to be moderate damage on that nub surface. You're going to see that white stress mark a little bit more using these nippers than you would with using, say, the PN120s or something else super thin. Now with the PN120s, although they are good nippers, even on a standalone basis, they're gonna run you about 45 bucks. And for the performance that you're gonna get out of these PN120s at 45 bucks, I definitely would not recommend these. You could definitely do way better with one of the nippers in the $35 bracket than you would do with these solo in the $45 bracket. To me, honestly, it just doesn't make sense to buy these whatsoever. There's just so many other better nippers out there at 45 bucks. I can't see it. And so that brings us to, last but not least, the reigning king of nippers, the Godhand SPN 120s. And I'm gonna tell you guys, the SPN 120s are notorious at this point. Everybody knows about the Godhand SPN 120s. These nippers are just known for their butter-like cuts, their silent and deadly slices through plastic, and just how damn close you can get on parts of these. Now, also to be fair, these are also known to be extremely fragile, extremely fragile. Do not drop these, okay? Because you will regret it. But yeah, the Godhand SPN 120s up until now are the reigning king of nippers. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everybody knows what a Godhand is. Everybody's had a Godhand. If they may already still be currently using a Godhand. The Godhands are just the shit. I want to review with you all their blade thickness. And I feel like the blade thickness is the one biggest thing that kind of stands out amongst them all. If you leave this video without knowing anything else, you're probably going to want to understand that blade thickness, because more often than not, the thinner the blade, the less damage that you're going to do to the part, and probably also the closer you're going to be able to get to the part. There are a couple of exceptions in there. However, that's usually how it's gonna flow. So now looking at that blade thickness amongst this entire group that we've had, going from the bottom, the thinnest, all the way up to the top, the thickest, it would go something like this. The Godhand SPN 120s, the Display 3.0s, the Display 2.0s, and the USA Gundam 2.0s. The USA Gundam 1.0s, the PN 120s, and the Vulcan, all of these, their blades are just kind of just in the mix there. And then following the USA Gundam 2.0s, I'd have the USA Gundam 1.0s, the Vulcans, and the PN 120s in no particular order. All right, thank you for hanging out with me and listening to all of that, if you guys watched all of that part of the video. So let's get down to brass tacks. Which one of these nippers is the best nipper? I want to be able to tell you guys what nippers are going to be the best bang for your buck, which ones you're going to get the most value out of, so that way you're not either overspending or underspending. That way, when you get your product, you feel good about what you purchased. So not only am I going to tell you guys which nippers are the best nippers overall, but I'm also going to go ahead and break it down into 3 parts and 3 price points, so you guys can get an idea for what nipper you're going to get the best value out of for the amount of money that you want to spend. So price point number 1, that's that low price point. I'm gonna consider this to be somewhere in the $10 to $15 range, maybe all the way up to about 20 bucks. In this particular price range, my pick for this would definitely be the standard Vulcans, not the primes, but the standard Vulcans. Now, the thing about these standard Vulcans is you gotta remember that they've got that thicker blade, kind of like your wire cutters are gonna have. Now, honestly, if I had to tell you guys, I would tell you to skip this price point altogether. I personally haven't found any other nippers, including these Vulcans, standard ones, that I really think are gonna be good for you long term in this price point. The $10, $15, $20 price range for nippers is just not that strong. There's not like a really strong competitor in that particular price point that I've found. So if I had to tell you guys, I would tell you guys to skip this price point altogether. However, if you are gonna try to go for something in this price point, I would definitely go for those Vulcan standard nippers. So the next price point is kind of the middle price point. I'd say this would be anywhere between 25 to maybe all the way up to about 35 bucks. And in this price point, this is where things get interesting. It's very kind of crowded in this particular price point. So to recap what we've got going on in the $35 bracket, we've got the USA Gundams, we've got the Despae 3.0s, and we've got the Vulcan Primes. So this $35 price point is definitely a tough one to call, especially for the nippers that I had on hand, because all of these nippers were really great nippers. However, one of these nippers definitely kind of stood out from the other two a little bit as far as kind of having the complete package. So at the $35 price point, I would have to go with the USA Gundam 2.0 nippers. Those nippers really actually surprised me. Very, very smooth cuts. I'm extremely impressed with what they did with the USA Gundam 2.0 nippers. It was definitely a huge upgrade from the 1.0s. The 1.0s definitely felt very middle of the road in your hands, and the 2.0s definitely felt really, really refined. So yeah, for the $35 price point, I would definitely have to give it to the USA Gundams. Was extremely impressed with the quality of those and just how well those felt to distinguish the USA Gundams apart from some of the higher branded nippers. So definitely shout out to them and whoever made those nippers for them, because they did a damn good job. Yeah, so the $35 mark is like super hard to judge on here, and honestly, I think the Despaes would have had the edge because their blade definitely feels sharper and definitely feels like you get a better cut than the USA Gundams. But if it wasn't for the fact that that blade, for whatever reason, I have that issue and it has like that second drop or that second hit. I don't even know what to call it, but you guys try them and let me know. If you have that issue, let me know down below. You'll know immediately what I'm talking about. I feel like the Vulcans would have also done better right here if they had that sharper blade. As I said earlier in the video, the Vulcans are just so smooth and on point. If they just had that blade, I think the Vulcans would really take it to God hand. If the Vulcans had a better blade on this Vulcan Prime nipper, it would have easily smashed both the USA Gundam and the Despaes at this $35 price point. Last but not least would be that top tier price point, and that's going to probably be somewhere between your $35 to $55 nipper price point. So in this category, there's really only two nippers, the PN120s and the SPN120s. If we wanted to maybe possibly consider the Despae 3.0s and the Vulcan Primes, assuming that those are actually on sale, which would mean that their actual base price would be higher and probably put them into this category, they would still lose, honestly, to the king of all nippers here, which is the God hand SPN 120 nippers. So yes, in this category, in this price point, definitely have to go with the SPN 120s. Now, in comparison to those PN 120s that are also in this category, like I told you guys, I would not waste my money on these. Do not buy these. Do not buy these. But just buy two pair of just SPN 120s. If you break a pair of SPN 120s, then you can just pop out the other pair. Don't do this. Don't waste your time or your money buying the PN 120s. I mean, they're just not worth it. If you really want some PN 120s, go down there to the second tier, the $35 tier, and pick up any one of those other nippers and use those as your first cuts for 35 bucks, as opposed to spending 40, 45 bucks on the PN 120s. Just not worth it. Now the SPN 120s in comparison to the Display 3.0's non-sale price, assuming that that's not a sale price, again, the SPN 120s would still win over the Displays here, primarily because of that shelf issue. I cannot get over that shelf issue. It sucks. You have such a smooth cut, and then you hit the bottom of that stroke and it like drops. You know what I mean? It fucking blows. Otherwise, the Display has the sharpest blade and the closest blade to the God hands. So if you're only worried about blade quality, then go with the Display 3.0s easily, because they've got the closest blade to the God hands. And you know, if you're really if you're just worried about blade, go with the Displays, because they got the closest blade for sure. And you can pick those up for like 35 bucks, and you know, on sale. So there's that. And then of course there's the Vulcan Prime nippers, also assuming that maybe that $35 price point is a sale price and their actual price is somewhere around 45 bucks. The Vulcans, I adored having those nippers, if it just weren't for the fact that the blade, if they could just improve that blade. Vulcan, improve the blade on the Nipper Prime, or the Vulcan Prime nipper, please. And yeah, I think those would be amazing. Everything else inside the Vulcan seems really refined, really smooth, no oil leaking, just, you know, it just felt right. The only thing it needs is a better blade. So unfortunately, the Vulcan has to fall victim here in this bracket as well, leaving the SPN 120s as the best nipper to purchase at this price point. And it's kind of in here, you know, by itself. Again, like I said, it's really a no-brainer. If you're gonna spend 45 bucks for nippers, go buy the damn God hands. Don't buy nothing else. You know, if you're gonna buy nippers at 45 bucks, SPN 120s. Now, finally to the end of this video, what nipper is the absolute best nipper? Did any of these nippers actually, you know, trump the reigning king of nippers? The answer to that is no, they did not. Not this year, at least not yet this year. But yes, the God Hand SPN 120 still reign supreme in my book. There is still not a better pair of nippers that I've seen out there on the market anywhere. Although we've had lots of great nippers come out this year, there's lots of great nippers on the market, period. And you know, I'm happy to see that we have these companies out here that are bringing these new products to market so that we can get better stuff. But yeah, right now the God Hand SPN 120s still hold that crown. So hopefully maybe next year we'll get a couple of revisions on some of these, and maybe next year we'll be able to have a new nipper king. So yeah. So now what I want you guys to do is go down there in the comments and tell me what you guys think about this Ultimate Review 2.0 or 2020 version of the nipper review, and let me know what nippers you guys are rocking down there for your builds. And if you're gonna pick up one of these nippers, which ones are you guys going to pick up? Hopefully this video was informative for you. If you got some value out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe button right over here for me, please. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming to check out the video. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.